No, that's excellent. And Ryan, thanks for turning down the radio. I don't know if the listeners at home can hear this. I didn't realize you were a Swiftie, and not only a Swiftie, but you only listened to Taylor's versions. That was kind of surprising from the studio, but
The
I
more you
respect
know.
it. I respect it.
The more
I just
you
can't.
know.
I can't broadcast it because of copyright claims and all that. But
Yeah, and this is not a paid advertisement for Taylor Swift.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Labor Thoughts podcast. Got some great guests here with us today, and this one's a little different for me. Usually I'm the guy that's, bothering everybody with questions and trying to see how much information I can extract from them. But I have the privilege today of sliding over into the passenger seat and handing the keys to the proverbial car, if you will, over to Ian. Ian's got some guests here with us. Not going to take anything away from it other than just a thank you to everybody for being here today. And then, Ian, I'm going to kick it over to you, and I'm going to just put my feet up and, I'll look for some gas stations along the way on this little road trip you're going to be taking us on, and maybe I'll chime in here and there. But it's your show, man. Take it away.
Well, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity to come back on here and be Chief Information Extractor today. I'm here with two of my esteemed industry friends here, Greg Greiner and Tim Hinson. If they'd like to introduce themselves, starting with Greg.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me. I am Greg Greiner. I'm the Managing Director for the Electrical Training Alliance.
And Tim, tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks again for letting me be here today. My name is Tim Hinson, and I work for Miller Electric Company. I've worked there for 33 years. I'm also a trustee on the Electrical Training Alliance of Jacksonville, and I'm also a 35-year member of the IBEW, so I've got a little bit of experience.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. And if this is your first time listening to Labor Thoughts, my name is Ian Andrews, NECA's Executive Director of Field and Industrial Labor Relations. And I work with these two gentlemen from my trustee standpoint on the Electrical Training Alliance. And because we don't have enough acronyms in the NECA, IBW, ETA world, we are on the Core CML Committee, which is a small group of individuals working on the core curriculum for the Electrical Training Alliance that you see within your programs, and CML, Computer Mediated Learning. We're going to really dive into the CML part today. It's one of those industry concepts that it's been around for several years now, but unfortunately we're finding not everybody's aware of it. They're not utilizing it, maybe they're not curious, and we're just trying to hopefully close some information gaps and make the business case why CML can help the industry evolve, help apprentices further education, and ultimately create the safest, most productive, best journey level workers across the country that we tout from the NECA IBW world through the Electrical Training Alliance. So without further ado, I don't want to steal too much thunder from the subject matter experts we have today, and I want to start my chief information extracting process. So Greg, I'm going to kick it to you to start. Could you explain what CML is?
Yeah, so CML, it's, as you said, it's another one of our wonderful abbreviations, Computer Mediated Learning. It's kind of like what it is what it is, what it says. It's like tractor pull. You go to a tractor pull, and what happens? A tractor pulls. Well, computer mediated learning. It's in the name. It's a learning model. It's a mode of delivering training using a computer. That the software is designed to support the knowing when to progress a student through their training. When a student is ready to progress through or make the next step, they show they're proficient at the current step that they're on, then it allows them to move forward. It's really no different than any training that we've ever tried to provide from a training aspect. We always want to know, are they getting it? Did they go through the content, and are they getting it? And how did we find that out? Nothing really in that question has changed. We're just using a different tool to do it because with technology, we advance with technology, and we now have a tool that can offset some of the things that we always had to do to find out, are they getting it? And so we're using a computer and helping mediate people through their training.
No, Greg, that's excellent. And Ryan, I hope you're doing okay in the passenger seat over there. Flashing back to a time at our NECA convention, we did labor relations roundtables, and one of the subjects was, what do you want to see in apprenticeship over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And almost every table I jumped into to say, what are y'all thinking? What are you talking about? made a comment, wouldn't it be cool if we did online training? And it was a real, oh dear, we have a messaging problem here. We have this. And so Greg, this started as blended learning, right? And it's evolved into CML. Could you maybe explain what the difference is between the two categorically?
Sure. So, 2008 was our first foray into blended learning, putting curriculum online, taking it from a 3-ring binder or a workbook and putting the content online. And by 2014, that was 2008, we had the outside curriculum, and by 2014, we had the inside curriculum. And again, using a blended learning format, because we were still learning how to use the technology that we had of the day. Learning management systems prior to that, they were so expensive. And they weren't really affordable for the standpoint of even, K-12 or it really had to get into higher ed, expensive higher ed, or military. And then when they became affordable, of course, the Electrical Training Alliance jumped right in and blended the training with as much technology as they could. So we're still doing the same kind of lecture-based training in the classroom, but the value was now an instructor could see a student's progress on individual lesson activities and kind of adapt their next lecture to the needs of the group. It's still very cohorted, very grouped concept, but that is blended learning, is just using a different mode than just only paper, pen, and lecture, and using an online tool to at least mitigate some of the needs of, do I have to actually grade their homework to find out how they're doing? And learning management system allowed us to accomplish that. Next step, could we then take the moment of where I'm actually providing the training and put that online as well, so that now the learner has access to it on their own time, in their own space, and repetitively. And so, blended learning was still more very cohort, very very lecture based, and then we're tracking their progress on quizzes, to computer mediated learning, where all the training is contained and all of it is online, and then it tracks their progress through.
From the passenger seat, if you don't mind, Ian. Other than the radio was a little too loud, I had to turn that down a bit. But Greg, I had a question for you. So blended learning, CML, if I'm in an apprenticeship program and I haven't dealt with any of this, I'm still delivering apprenticeship training the traditional, workbooks kind of way. Is it a process where I go through blended learning and then eventually to CML? Do I jump blended learning now? Like, how do I get there, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, great question. So we can just jump right to using the technology of the day. It's you didn't have technology. There may have been steps in between. It's just like tools out in the field. We go from one tool to the next. If you didn't get some of the middle ground tools, that's okay. You can still use the current one, and that's the same way with CML. We've evolved the training such that we can jump from wherever anybody's at straight to it. And in fact, it's everywhere. It's this style of training is in all of our. If your kids are seeing this style of training in their grade schools, high schools, all their college level training. It's just the model of training of today, and it's very accessible, and you can jump right to it.
No, that's excellent. And Ryan, thanks for turning down the radio. I don't know if the listeners at home can hear this. I didn't realize you were a Swiftie, and not only a Swiftie, but you only listened to Taylor's versions. That was kind of surprising from the studio, but I respect it. I respect it.
The more you know.
I can't broadcast it because of copyright claims and all that, but
Yeah, and this is not a paid advertisement for Taylor Swift. So
Right.
hard pivot, something in our labor relations world we hear quite often is, what is the return on investment? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? So from a contractor's perspective, Tim, what value, Jacksonville was a front leader in adopting CML. What value do you see with the apprentices in your program utilizing CML?
Well, there's actually a couple of things that we've seen out of it. One is, as Greg alluded to, is the technology part. The lecture-based training it had its place in its time, but it's just like the Electrical Training Alliance in general was created like 1945. Well, nobody would expect us to be using the same curriculum from 1945. It has to evolve, and we're growing or we're dying. So what we've seen is, one is the younger generation, they are more drawn to the technology part, the computer-based learning. That's something that they, as Greg said, that's what they're doing in school, high school, elementary school now. They're using computers to learn. And that's what we're doing. And so this is just something that they can easily gravitate to and navigate within. My generation, no, we were probably more on the lecture base, but this generation is really conducive to the technology part of CML. But on the flip side of that, as Greg also said, this is allowing them to do their academic portion on the computer on their time when it's convenient for them. So there is some flexibility for them as well that it allows them to do their lessons when it's convenient for them. But what it does, it frees up the time at the actual apprenticeship for hands-on training. So we have these wonderful, beautiful craft certification labs and other labs that we have for hands-on training that it allows them to do their CML or academic portion on their time, and then it frees up the time at the school for our instructors to go out there and let people get hands-on, because everybody doesn't get, they're not always running MC cable or installing rigid conduit or EMT. So this allows us to expose our apprentices to the multiple facets of our industry. Now we have EV, we got solar, we have these new technologies coming out. We need time to train on those, and this is allowing us to do that.
No, that's excellent. And I want to hit on something you brought up early in that comment, talking about the generations coming into the trade, right? And we know from an industry standpoint, we have more applicants than apprentices that we indenture. And depending on which Reddit or Facebook thread you go into, people have some very strong feelings about the difficulty sometimes of getting into the apprenticeship. So I don't ask this question, I'm going to start with Tim, and then Greg, I'd love your thoughts as well. I don't ask this question though from a, how do we improve the number of recruits so much, but do you find CML to improve the quality in that volume of recruits? Because workforce, as it's on everybody's mind, and it's a dire need, you want to have the best of the best, but do you see that quality improving when you have a CML program in place to pitch that to a prospective apprentice?
Yeah, I do, because it is attractive to the younger generation that this is what you're going to expect, within our program. So yeah, we see them drawn to that, and as they progress in the industry, as they graduate from the apprenticeship and they become a journey worker or higher level, the technology, there's different technologies for all those other levels. Bluebeam, everybody knows a Bluebeam is one, but so this is a way that, or it's a complement to the other technologies that we use. Technology is not going away. So the people that are drawn to this, they're going to be successful in the apprenticeship because they're already technologically savvy, but that will also translate to being successful later in their careers with these other, technologies, accounting softwares or Bluebeam or whatever that the case may be.
Oh, that's excellent. Greg, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the, it was surprising when we found this, but some of the surprising data that we have come across has shown that retention of students has increased. And I don't just mean retention of like knowledge. I mean actual retention of students in the apprenticeship. And I think, so we don't have enough data to start really to be able to quantify that perfectly. But I think part of it has to do with the concept that, this learning is on their own time. We're meeting them where they're at, right? They didn't grow up watching TV shows that only came on TV at the same day of the week, at the same time of the week, right? They do it on their own time. And what we're finding is, I think when people have the ability to rewatch, relearn, repractice content and get it before moving on, where our previous versions, blended learning and anything prior, required us to cover topics at the same time with the entire group, whether a student was, waiting for the class to catch up, or whether the student was behind the class going, I still don't understand what happened back there. and you're asking me to learn this next thing. Hopefully I catch it. Well, I think what happens is, with this younger group and really any group, if I'm not catching on and I'm not getting it, pretty soon I'm going to get disinterested. And so, but then when I have a tool that I actually, I can learn from this, and I am learning, and I'm finding that I'm learning, I actually may grow more confident. And so to that end, I think that, you end up with better, we don't lose people that actually could be better because of our learning model not being, advanced. I think so there's all these different ways that this thing can help. One of them, the stuff Tim's talking about with, keeping up with technology and all the technology that's out in the field, our learning model should represent that. But also, I think we're hitting people a little better, and that breeds confidence, and then you end up with more better people.
Yeah, Tim hit the nail on the head. I love the term, if you're not growing, you're dying. I think I heard that at 18. It was one of those profound moments in my life that I didn't quite understand, but grown into it, and this is a part of our industry and our education, growing or dying. But Ryan, what do you think?
I just wanted to jump in, because this isn't a space that I play in very often from the labor relations standpoint. The ETA apprenticeship is Ian's side of the house. But, you come into things with preconceived notions, and I wanted to highlight something. Tim, you've said it twice now, and I didn't even think of it this way with CML, of how much of a recruitment tool it is. I never really considered that going in. I've always looked at it from the training standpoint, where you're trying to improve, make a better apprentice, make a better experience for them. But you're right. This is the way the newer generation is learning. So if you have a program that hasn't necessarily come on board with it, they're not going to be as attractive to the way people are learning today. So I don't know, that was interesting to me. I never thought of it that way.
And these younger folks, especially students coming out of high school, they have options. They can go to college. They can they can go to the apprenticeship. They can do other things. So the product that we're producing now is definitely equivalent to any college out there. And we have multiple colleges that have even considered our curriculum as college level. It gives college credits for those. So it's a professional product, and it's keeping us in line with everyone else. Really. So it is a recruiting tool, because when we can show that this is what you're going to be doing, they're like, oh, okay, well, I've been doing that in high school and so forth, and I would do that in college. So now you're offering kind of a parallel path, so to speak.
Yeah, it legitimizes it.
Yes.
Yeah, we're competing with not only other trades, we're competing with colleges, and if we're recruiting adults, which we are, we're also competing with the entire global industrial workforce, right? So what are your differentiators? This is a way to be a little better, stand out from the pack, and like Greg hit on with retention, right? I think we sit at 25 to 30% attrition across programs annually, which is better than most construction attrition, which is great, but this is another way. If we can raise that 5%, think about how many tens of thousands of workers that's going to be over the course of the next 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
So I want to pivot back to our convention roundtable and talking about how the messaging part of this isn't maybe out there yet, and we're trying to change that. We'll stay with Greg to start. If you're listening to this episode right now, Greg, do you have any thoughts for the listener on maybe how they could change the messaging or help improve, just get general knowledge out there that CML exists?
Yeah, talk to your training center would be one, right? Because it's all there. Participate on a national level and visit with your NECA leadership and the training center leadership that's going on. It's a tough one. The messaging has been tough because as I said earlier, it's been around since 2008. We've been doing online training heavily since 2014. And the CML curriculum actually started rolling out in the high schools in 2018. So we're 7 years later, and we're looking at trying to increase that messaging. It's a big question there, Ian.
No, it's a major one. I'd maybe pivot to Tim as a trustee. I'm sure CML didn't come to Jacksonville out of nowhere. Could you maybe talk about how it found you and what you did to bring on CML?
Well, fortunately, we have a very progressive training director, and he is plugged in nationally, and he was exposed to this early on. So, and I think that's part of the necessity is that the training center, they've definitely been exposed to this. Greg and Todd and their team, they have done a lot of webinars and virtual meetings to discuss it, to talk about it, to explain it, to answer questions. I know at NTI has probably covered a lot too. So they've put a lot of effort into making sure everyone knows about it. So now it's up to us. And let me back up. Greg, Todd, all the people that at the national office, those people are plugged into the latest and greatest technologies of educational delivery, however you want to say it. So we have got to trust them that now is the time, and then actually it's been a few years now, but we've got to move to this in order to stay in the game, to stay competitive. And this, this isn't the last thing. This isn't the last. CML isn't the end. I'm sure they're already thinking about the next level of training that, whatever that model is. And so we've got to think in those terms. But we've got to trust Greg and Todd in that what they're providing us is really where we need to be right now. And we've got to move further in the future. But right now, we've got to make this change. So I think a lot of people do know about CML because it has been out there for years, but there has been some resistance to it. But it's just like the 40s, 50s, 60s. We've had to change. We've had to grow. There's new technologies out there as far as the work that we do is like EV. So we've got to keep going. And so they're providing us with this beautiful tool to be able to advance, and we've got to embrace it. So as a trustee, guess what? I didn't even need to know what it was at first, but if this was the newest, greatest, latest thing from the National ETA, guess what? We're going to do it. And we're going to figure it out, and I'm sure there's a learning curve, and there was, and there still is, but it has proven to be what we need for now. And like I say, that's going to change, and we're going to need something different 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever down the line. But this is where we need to be. So as trustees, as training directors, as instructors, we've got to embrace this. And I'll give you a quick story that I came across a few months ago. I was in another city at an apprenticeship. They were having a grand opening for a new facility. And I asked one of the instructors about, what do you think about CML? And he said initially, you know what? I didn't like it. I didn't want to have nothing to do with it. But they implemented it, fortunately. And he said, what really changed my mind is one of the class nights as we started into this, I was going to do a lecture, and I had my notes up on the board. And as I started talking, the apprentices were answering my questions before I really even asked. And so what he found was they'd already done the work via the CML at home and were ready. They didn't even need the lecture. And so it's been a mind shift for him. He said, after that, the lights came on. Because what we did, we stopped. We went out into the lab and did some motor controls. So he's having to make the adjustment. And I think that's where the level of adjustment has to be made is these instructors have done a fantastic job for years, decades, teaching our apprentices, lecturing. But now we've got to shift and make that change to the CML. And as they starting to see the success that it's causing by the apprentices learning on their own and being prepared when they come to class, now let's ratchet it up and let's get some hands-on training going.
Now, Tim, you hit on a great point there. We'll talk about resistance a little bit because life isn't all roses as much as we like it to be. But the first one I want to talk about right there, and maybe we'll start with Greg from a macro point of view. I've heard the gatekeeping comment, well, there's a lack of face-to-face contact. You say it goes to hands-on training, but I don't believe it because they haven't seen or touched it, right? It's not real. That's how we learn in a mechanical trade with our hands. Seeing is believing. Could you maybe talk about how CML transitions, the time to actually improve face-to-face contact and lab time?
Sure. I mean, it really gets down to the, why are we doing it? We got 180 hours a year in person with our apprentices to do the related instruction and to verify that they're getting the work process training. And so and like I said at the beginning, the question of, is a person getting it, and how are they progressing through their content? Hasn't changed. It's the same question since the 40s that we're dealing with today. We're using technology to get there. So if we can support taking that lecture out of the classroom that we were doing, that one instructor that Tim talked about was about to deliver, and go, wait, for the exact same amount of time as they used to spend on their homework, they actually have already done the lecture, and they actually have already started to retain the content. And now I have that 180 hours a year in the classroom that I can spend with them to now get them, I think I heard it earlier, not every apprentice is on every job. They're not all doing MC. So, but yet every journeyman who walks on a job site is expected to know how to do that. Okay, well then let's do that at the training center, because now we have the time to do that, to where now every single person, whether they got to do it on the field, on a job site, in a construction environment, if that didn't happen, well, they did get to have it mimicked at a training center in a safe environment where they could practice and do all the same aspects of it and learn about it. And now they're still, then they still got their on-the-job experience through the apprenticeship, whatever it was, but now they've got all the work process stuff. So with CML, these students now have what happens at the training center can change. What used to happen doesn't have to happen, which allows now everyone to get that field experience, even though it's not a true job site experience, but it can be mimicked pretty well at a safe environment, a training center. And I think that's what can change, and then grow your people and grow their abilities.
No, that's fantastic. Are there other misconceptions about CML that you may have heard out there, Greg?
Yeah, biggest one is we're getting rid of the instructor, and it's not they're needed more now than ever to actually take the educational components, the academic components, and go, okay, yeah, you learned all of that. Here's how to apply it. Oftentimes that can actually take more people than less. Right, because it depends on how many people you can lab in one time, and how safe you can be with a group of people. I can lecture to 250 people, but can I lab 250? No, we have to think through that. So are we getting rid of the instructor? No, the instructor's still there. There are students that are going to still, even after they went through their CML training, they're going to raise their hand and say, I'm on lesson 3 and I just can't get past it, and here's what I'm struggling with. Can you help me? But the deal is that instructor doesn't have to work with a cohort of 30 and talk to all 30 about that issue on lesson 3. They have to talk to the 3 or 4 that are like, this is what I'm stuck on. And now it's better for everybody. It's better for the student because they're sitting next to people that, hey, we're all in the same boat and we're all trying to figure it out together. And we know we're not the only 3, there's not the rest of the group going, I can tell they're waiting for me to catch on. There's just a lot of wins there, and the instructor still has to be there. Plus, now we've just changed what they can do, which is what they probably thought they were going to do when they went to apprenticeship anyway, was we're going to show these new apprentices how to do the job. Well, now they can do that. They can actually show them how to do the job as opposed to lecturing in a classroom.
Greg, and it sounds like you're leaning more into the truth strengths of the instructors anyway. I mean, because and I'm not taking anything away from instructors, but by and large, our instructors are journey workers.
That's right.
From the field that are either doing it, if it's a night school, they're doing it after they get off work, and some of them it's, day school and it's their full-time job, but they're not trained educators. That's a whole different field. That's a whole different profession.
That's right.
So it sounds like you're taking the best you can possibly make with CML and doing the educating part of it, and then leaning into the truth strengths of the instructors, of reinforcing it. And this is the way it happens in the real world. And that just kind of clicked with me when you were saying all that. So
yeah, it's huge. I mean,
cool.
My first day as an instructor, if I had been told, look, your job is to train them on the skills that you have. Oh, how fun would that be, right? That's what I dreamt of. Instead, I had to learn how to become a lecturer and learn how to work in a classroom and on a whiteboard. Yeah, absolutely. The strength of our membership is their knowledge and abilities and skills. And now they can turn around and share that. And that is the role of the instructor. And no, we're absolutely not getting rid of them. But that is It's the knee jerk. I mean, technology comes in and we immediately go, okay, technology is replacing me. And, AI is coming, AI is going to replace me. And it's like, no, it's going to replace somebody who doesn't engage with it, but it's not going to replace you.
And I think there's a point to be made that the CML is online, and that's what we're talking about as far as the curriculum, the academic portion. But the hands-on that we're talking about, freeing up the instructor to do, that's not online. That's not virtual. It's not putting goggles on and all that. And I'm not real high on that. What I am big on is going out in there to the lab and getting some electrical metallic tubing, some EMT, and learning how to bend it, or rigid, or MC cable, or whatever the case may be. And that's what the labs are designed for. And mostly it's done, I think, through craft certification labs. That's what we have in Jacksonville. So it's actual hands-on. So I think we need to make a distinction that the academic portion is online through the CML, but the hands-on and freeing up the instructor and the class to do that is actual conduit and wire, motor starters, whatever the case may be.
Greg, do you have anything else you want to add there? Saw you lean in a little bit.
No. I was just all in. I totally agree with Tim. That is a really nice way to distinguish. Like, yes, academics, that education piece is online. The training, that's all in person. It's on all hands on, and the instructor's involved in every step of that.
No, spot on. I want to lean in now to your all's experience. You have a much longer tenure than I have on the core CML committee. So you've seen this across the country, not just our working group, but multiple facets and subgroups coming together. Have there been any best practices for areas that have adopted CML that you think are worth sharing?
The places that I've seen that have embraced, and I don't know if embraced, but at least that I've seen the most success, is when there's a lot of trust between the committee, their training director, and their instructor staff, right? So to waylay some of that fear, because anything new, that's the first thing we're going to be is fear. And if there's some trust in there, and then the sharing with that instructor that, we're going to want you to prep, and the best way for you to be a success here is if you're the most prepared. And the way we're going to have you prepare, we're going to have you take the course as a student and actually experience exactly what the students are about to experience. Because if they're a longtime instructor, then this is the way we've always done it. And if I don't know what changed, how do I know what I can change? And so the best way to know what changed is to go experience the new experience that the students are having. It's not new to them, but it'll be new to the instructor. And so that way they can make a, subtraction moment and go, okay, I used to do this. I don't have to because it's here. And when programs have done that, when they've invested in time with their instructors to really engage with taking the content as a student to experience, okay, this is how we can change. And then listening to their instructors go and actually asking them, okay, well, now that you can change, what do you want to change? And then the committee's deciding what they're capable and financially, what their structure is and all of that. But that's how people then apply it has been different. There's been 10, 15 different ways people have applied it. People have asked us, so can you, Electrical Training Alliance, can you give us a specific script of how to do this? Well, every building's different. Everybody does their training. Some do nights, some do days, some do hybrid, some do, 1 day a week, some do block training. It's all over the map. And so to give everybody, and here's the one prescription of how to do it, well, that doesn't work for this industry. But if they could do one thing of, okay, you have had how you've always done it. Now go through this training and see what's actually changed and look at it for the aspect of, wow, if it's doing that, here's what we could do.
Oh, spot on. Tim, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's just it's going to take some leadership at every facility. And that's the way our organization is. Each school kind of runs the school the way they see fit. But Greg and his team have offered a lot of support on how to roll this out, the technical questions that they have. So it's not from a lack of support from the national office. It's just going to be a matter of the trustees, the director, and the instructors, coming together to say what. The whole crux of it is, we're trying to make journey workers. And what's the best for the apprentice? Well, I can tell you that in my opinion, and I think a lot of the people's opinion, this is the best thing for the apprentice. It's not what's the best for the director, or it's not always what's best for the instructor. It's for the apprentice. This is apprentice centric. So we're trying to turn out journey workers to be our future leaders. So we got to provide some leadership and say, look, we got to do what we got to do to change gears. We're not terminating all the instructors, as Greg said, but we're shifting. We have to make a shift. We're having to modify what we're doing. And that's the way any business is run anyways. You have to go with the flow and make corrections as you go. That's all we're doing. This is the current model. And so the trustees, the director, instructors, they've got to get behind this to move forward, because this is the future. It's not the end, but this is where we need to be right now. And I know there's cost considerations, there's all kinds of things, facility considerations, but we've got to make do with what we got, and we got to move forward with this.
All right, Greg, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a second. No hard feelings here, but there's two really nuanced questions that I'm going to ask you, because as these conversations have come up across the country, they're what I call jaw droppers. You bring it up to a trustee, a training director, a chapter executive, a NECA member, and they're like, you can just see them physically taken aback. So the first one, I want to talk about CML and when you start classes. Does CML improve the ability to take non-concurrent classes?
I think that's an awesome question. I think that one of the great things is, as I said earlier, that when we used to do cohort training, everybody's at the same time in the same place because that's what the administration says is going to happen at that moment. And that's the only way we could do it. The moment we broke it out to where now a student can go through the content at their own pace, at their own time, maybe within parameters of what the school requires, like you can't just take forever, right? There's got to be some limitations, but there's a rule that, hey, I'm handing your curriculum right now, and you have this long to be at the first test, and you have this long to be at the next test, that kind of thing. But once that's made aware to people that you can do that, which is how CML is built, it starts to open the doors to, wait a minute, I could hire, and I don't have to wait until our normally scheduled face-to-face time to start them on their academics. I could start them immediately. The moment they're hired, I could hand the curriculum to them. And that means I could hire at will, whatever the training center's needs are, however they need to fill work. And another huge value point to that is a lot of times that if we do only cohort training, and for some programs their cohorts don't start until a specific time of the year, if a person gets hired so far in advance of when cohort training starts, they obtain their probation hours before school starts. And then you find out school happens, and then we find out that maybe this person really, school wasn't for them. And the academics that are required as a part of the apprenticeship are not something that's for them. Well, that became a problem because now we've just lost a spot. So now if we can find that out immediately, right? Because we can hire, whenever a program hires, they can immediately give them access to their content, start tracking their progress. You'll know a lot about whether they're capable of going to work and doing school through apprenticeship. And for the people that are still on the ranked list, who didn't get in because there was only so many spots at the time, they can be offered this training too. And they could be taking the CML training on the side, right? They're on the ranked list, they want in, they didn't get in yet because of whatever metric was used. And then maybe there's somebody, and there's always somebody that isn't going to make it. And you could backfill them immediately with somebody who's on the ranked list, who's already caught up with the curriculum or could catch up with the curriculum because it's being done asynchronously. We get to that concept. I think that's going to be one of the biggest gold stars for this style of training, is changing from synchronous only style of training to asynchronous options to allow backfilling your pipeline, and knowing that if you needed 50, 100, 20, whatever the number is to be in second year, to know you'll have them by hiring exactly that many and then backfilling them as needed, and knowing that by the time you get to second year, that's how many you have. That's the only way you're going to increase the membership of the workforce. and be able to control that is something like this. So yes, I think it completely changes the game on hiring.
That's excellent. The ability to scale, right? It's everything, especially in today's construction environment and the rate of which mega projects are hitting. I had a conversation this last year with a program, and they take about 20 a year, and we had presented some attrition studies to say, hey, you're losing 100 journey level workers. And their response was, awesome, we're going to 25. But it was a program that in January sent an email out, what's your work picture? They received a count for apprentices. And then they had an unforeseen project hit where they needed about 90 new ones in June, and it was kind of flat-footed, right? Well, we can't start a new class. We've already interviewed, indentured, and we're good. We can't scale. And that's how this conversation launched, and the people I was speaking with, you could kind of see the jaw drop, like that's a silver bullet. And they're a program now looking at bringing on CML, and it was a really, really big game changer. So hot seat question number 2, Greg, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's see. I don't know. I'm nervous.
You're handling this better than a Chicago Bears head coaching interview, so just keep going. Just keep going.
That's not a job I'm looking for.
Me either.
No one lasts there.
Me either. It's painful. If an apprentice travels, and we know that's happening more and more, does CML help them stay up to speed on education across the way? Is there any kind of uniform experience there?
I think some there's opportunity there. I mean, one of the deals is this is standardized training. And we talked about that we're on a committee together, core CML training. Core, this is the core training that all inside electrical workers take. So no matter where they go, this is the curriculum. And with their CML, again, they're getting that education component no matter where they're at, whether they're at Starbucks for a morning coffee or they're 400 miles from home on some other job. And you can do your training anywhere at any time. And so, yeah, I think it supports, and that's something that we continue to look at as Tim talked about. This is the future right now. There are more things on the horizon, and we're continuing to evolve in that model of how do we support anybody as anywhere. Can they get their training needs met? Their education component. So, yeah, absolutely, it can help with that.
All right, forward future thinking. Tim, you've mentioned future a couple times, and this is the now, but it's not the end. What do you think is next?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm sure that Todd and Greg, I'm sure they're looking at stuff already. But some of the things that come up for the future may not even exist right now. So I think we can't say we're working, like I don't think Greg is going to say we're working on the 5-year plan or 10-year plan, because some of the technologies may not be there. But so I think what I'm looking at as a trustee, just with my trustee hat on, is I'm looking for Greg and Todd and their team to be open to what's coming up. They're obviously tuned into trends. Their parent organizations, NECA and IBW, I'm sure they give them a lot of information and where we're going. Like with data centers now seems to be a huge thing that I know my company's doing. So I feel like the national ETA is set up, and their mindset is to evaluate what the future looks like. And I swear I don't know what that looks like, because I'm kind of at the end of my career, but I know there's things that are coming. But again, as a trustee and even representing a contractor, I've got to trust Greg and Todd and their team to be looking at that and evaluating things that come along. So in 5 years, what we're talking about today, it could be totally different. But I trust Greg and their team to be aware of that and to embrace whatever that thing is that we need to be incorporating into our training.
Greg, I'm going to skip you for right now. Ryan, what do you think is next?
Well, Tim, based off of a comment you made a little while back, you may disagree with me here, but I have anecdotal evidence to back this up. Virtual reality, putting on the goggles, if you will, into training. So CML obviously is covering a lot of the academic side, and I don't see it as replacing an instructor at all. I see it as something that's not only going to help boost training, it's going to give programs that don't necessarily have the resources to get a hold of all of the physical things, but it also will broaden the apprentice's horizon. They can literally experience a lot more. You can take an apprentice from North Florida and throw them in a snowstorm, up in North Dakota, and this is how this is going to look. Obviously, it's hard to get the temperature and all that. But my anecdotal evidence of this was I did a career day that had a bunch of 9th to 12th grade students, and I walked over to a line contractor that was that had a huge booth there, and my expertise is